Evelyn to Philip, V-mail dated February 16, 1944. My dearest Phil, yours, 3rd of February, advising me that you already know Izzy Gutkin is in England, reached me this morning. And you don't have to explain the asterisk either. I catch on. Adele is about the same, but I now have a beautiful running nose. I'll bet I sneezed 100 times today. Yale stopped over in the afternoon. He looks well, having put on 10 pounds. Shirley hadn't seen her father and visited for him instead of coming over with Yale. Harry bought a blue coat. I haven't seen it, as it has to be altered a bit, $34.50, and a pair of cocoa brown pants, $14.50. Adele says boy clearly. Sarah came in this afternoon to see Adele, and when ready to depart said, I'll see you later. Adele threw a kiss. Guess that shows how well she understands everything. One usually says goodbye or so long. By the way, Yale said he took his overseas physical and passed. He says men at his fields are shipped suddenly, so he has no idea of whether or not he'll go. Room to say, I love you, Phil. Your Ev. Philip to Evelyn, February 16, 1944. Evie, dearest, tonight I am CQ. I have just finished some unfinished business, put my bunk in readiness, and built a nice, warm, cheery fire in the stove to keep me warm. Now I am quite ready to talk to you. The fact that no mail arrived from you for the second consecutive day, however, doesn't promise much for the volume of this letter. However, let us hope for the best, Hepby? Who can tell? If I sit and think and stare at the keys of the typewriter long enough, I may get an idea. It just occurred to me, the greatest story in the world is contained somewhere in these very keys, if I only knew the combination. Today was a very ordinary kind of day, except perhaps that it was the first one that carried a hint of spring. This morning it was my turn to be room orderly, so that by the time I finished sweeping, mopping, and cleaning the hut up generally, after which I shaved, it was 9:30. From then until 11:15, when I went to lunch, roast beef, mashed potatoes, peas, B&B, coffee, sliced canned peaches. Are you jealous, sweet? I was kept pretty busy about the orderly room. In the afternoon, I am usually busier, and today was no exception. Red stopped in at 5:15, and we went to chow. Supper is usually a pretty loose affair. They just slap anything they have at you. But we weren't so concerned with the meal as we were with the dessert, which today, being Tuesday, was vanilla ice cream. After we had finagled ourselves 3 helpings apiece, we decided that we had had enough. After supper, I came back here to the orderly room to make myself comfortable for the night, and that's where you came in. Page 2, darling, at least figuratively. I guess it would be too much to hope for, to wish you came in actually. Believe it or not, I often tease myself with that very idea. I ask myself how I would react if I saw you walk in through the door of the hut. Or sometimes, in the midst of a London crowd, I'll look for your dear face half hopefully, knowing full well that you are some thousands of miles away. When I take cognizance of what is in my mind at these times, I always wind up wondering what I would do or say if I had seen you. I guess I'll never know the answer to that particular question. Sergeant Pepler just dropped in to borrow an envelope, and we got to talking about this and that. Somehow we got onto the subject of the infantry, and I told him something of my experiences at Fort Meade and at A.P. Hill in '41. I find that certain nights, the more difficult ones, stand out in my memory. I compared the grind of those days with our present easygoing existence, and he agreed with me that I was damn lucky to get out of the infantry when I did. Which all brings me right up to this moment. And right at this moment, I am wishing very hard that you were right here beside me for me to fondle and pet and kiss, and a little later, if you didn't mind the roughness of the blankets, I would take you to bed with me. You understand, of course, that we'd be rather crowded, because the bunk is barely wide enough for one, let alone two. But then we never did take up very much room in bed, did we, sweet? In fancy, whether you know it or not, you are always by my side when I am in bed. If I close my eyes and concentrate real hard, as I invariably make it a point to do, I can almost feel the sweet velvety warmth of you next to me. Tonight in the page 3, quiet solitude, without extraneous distractions, I feel you very close indeed, my darling. And feeling you close, I am reluctant to say good night. Instead, I'll say, as I used to once upon a time, sleep tight, baby. I love you. My dearest love to my other little girl. My love to all. Your adoring husband, Phil. Philip to Evelyn, also February 16th, 1944. Dearest darling, today was definitely a good day, for the afternoon mail brought loads of mail for everyone. I received 5 letters from you, namely 20th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 26th January. The 6th letter was in the nature of a surprise. I still don't believe it. Phil came through with a letter of 6 pages, no less. Can you blame me for disbelieving my eyes? It seems he took exception to my chiding him for not being a writing man. Some guys will go to any length to make liars of their critics. He seems to be having himself quite a time around Washington. His unprecedented cordiality was also a great surprise to me. No kiddin', Ev. He's almost demonstratively affectionate. Now, if I am to save face, I must send him at least a 7-pager. Your own letters, darling, are a joy to read. I only regret that time does not permit me to answer them individually. They are written on your new personalized stationery and are very neat. I am hoping you get the typewriter repaired soon. Then you will be able to write so much more on each sheet. It is now 9:30, and there are still some things I have to do in preparation for tomorrow when I am leaving for London to meet Eddie, I hope. I know you will understand, sweet, if I don't take the necessary time to answer your letters in the manner to which you are accustomed at this unfavorable time. I hope to get the opportunity within the next few days in London. I'll do better than that. I hereby promise to make the opportunity. Page 2. Before I sign off, and in order to keep this letter from being complete washout, I'll give you the news of the day. As you know, last night I was CQ. One of my duties on this detail is to waken everyone at 6:30. Anyone who wants breakfast badly enough to climb out from under the warm blankets to get it arises at that time. The others continue to sleep until about 7:30. I don't have to tell you in which category I belong. Who you calling lazy? I just don't like breakfast. All right, let's not argue the point, or I'll never get on with the rest of the story. Anyhow, in order to ensure that I get up in time to wake the others, I tell the operator to give me a ring at 6:15. I was on South Street trying to buy myself a suit of civilian clothes with $1 in my pocket when I was suddenly aware that the operator was making desperate efforts to rouse me. When I came to and heard blank on the phone bell, I realized that it was the operator's gesture to signify that he was giving it up as a bad job. I tumbled out hastily, Brr, and answered the phone. Then, still shivering, I scrambled into my clothes and made the rounds of the huts and awoke all the men. That was the beginning of the day that was, to all intents and purposes, exactly the same as any other 100 days in the ETO. Even the weather was typical, if you know what I mean. The only dissimilarity from most other days occurred about 4 p.m. when I received those 6 scrumptious letters, which is where I came in. And now it is almost 10 o'clock and I must run, but not before I say to you and the pumpkin and the family, I love you all, but especially you, my sweet. As ever, and I do mean lovingly, Phil.